Hello and welcome to the Coding Network. This is the first installment in the Java, the Innovative Programming Language series, and we're just going to get started here with the Introduction to Java, Section 1 equals new Section 1. So congratulations, you want to learn Java. It's a great programming language. It's my personal favorite. That's why this channel is starting off with learning Java. Okay. So in this section, you're going to learn about the history of Java, Java's syntax, IDEs, running code, the main method, and your first program. All right. So the creation of Java, this is very, very abbreviated. If you look online, you'll find way more history of Java. So it was created in 1991 by three men of Sun Microsystems. It was called Green Tree, and then it was called Oak, and then they settled on Java because Oak was copyrighted by a company. And eventually Oracle bought Sun Microsystems, and now to this day still owns the rights to Java. Java's heritage is derived from the curly brace languages, which comes from the programming language C. You've probably heard of it because from C derived Java, C++, C#, and JavaScript. And I just want to get this out of the way that even though Java and JavaScript have very, very similar names, it's just Java and JavaScript, really the only main similarities they have is because they derived from C, not because they're really meant for the same thing. So I just thought I'll get it out of the way. You should look into JavaScript, because if you think this is JavaScript, it is not that. Java does not do the same things JavaScript does. So a step away from C. Java's main strength is that it's object-oriented programming. Before, a programmer would write code over and over and over again. With object-oriented programming, you can write a class and call that class. So let's say you just you had a method, and all that method did was divide two numbers. Now in C, what you would do is every time you wanted that method, you would call it over and over and over and over again, as in not calling it, but writing it. You would have to rewrite it every time. Now with Java, which you'll learn down the line here, is that you can write a class, put that method in the class, and then create instances of the class to then use. And because of that, you don't need to write the same code over and over again. So we're going to move right on to an IDE. An IDE is an integrated development environment. Long story short, it's a software that developers use to code programming language. For Java, there's usually two. I've used both. I used Dr. Java, which is this J, and then BlueJ, which is the one that's the bird. I personally use BlueJ, but I think as the next slide, you're going to see some strengths and weaknesses here. They both have pros and cons. BlueJ is really, really simple and easy to use. As you'll see down the line, you'll have to import packages. With BlueJ, you still need to import them, but they're already pre-installed with the download. So as soon as you download, you can be ready to go. You don't need to worry about anything. Difference is, though, with Dr. Java, it looks a lot nicer, and it's less laggy because BlueJ likes to do some nice stuff. It'll constantly compile it, so you can catch errors quicker, and it has a nice background and stuff, but once your code starts getting really, really long, it's super laggy. And but the problem with Dr. Java is you need to download multiple things like the JDK and all of that to actually get Java's full functionality. And for a lot of computers, it's really, really hard to set up. So you can look into it, decide. I personally use BlueJ, like I said, but that's all there is to that. Now, there are times when you'll be unable to use an IDE, whether you cannot download anything, or maybe you just don't have space for an IDE. Some of them can be, a lot of space. Well, you can go to an SCE source code editor online that will, do the same thing. I mean, of course it has restrictions, and we have a section eventually called graphics. Java is really, really good with graphics, and online compilers can't do that. But if you ever need it, there's one right there. I'll put that link in the description, tutorials point, but most of them are good if you just need to do something quick to test it. Okay, Java syntax. This is very, very basic, and we're going to hop into a program later today, as in later in this video, and I'll actually show you this, but all sections of Java code must be contained in curly braces. all code statements must end in a semicolon, and all conditional statements must be enclosed in parentheses. Camel case notation is something. It's basically the way Java programmers will define variables and stuff. The notation basically specifies that when writing a class, the class name should be uppercase, and then for variables, the first word should be lowercase, and every subsequent word should be uppercase. So as you can see down here, instead of camel case, it's camel, capital C after that camel case. And that just makes it easier to read variable names. Of course, you don't have to do that, but it is recommended because that's the way all certified Java professionals are going to be declaring their variables, and it's good that you do too. Okay, the main method. All Java code starts running at the main method. Any code put inside the main method will be ran, but anything else will not run unless you call like a method, and then it'll run that code. But everything you're gonna run is gonna start in the main method. And the declaration is public static void main, and then parentheses string array. Well, the two square brackets is an array, but string two square brackets args, and then close the parentheses, and those curly braces you'll eventually separate and write the code in. Once we get the classes, you'll know exactly what this means. As a quick just thing, you're probably not going to understand what I'm talking about here, but public means everyone can see, static meaning belonging to the class, void meaning no return, main is the name, and then the parameters is a string array called arguments. And that is just back-end stuff, but that's the declaration, and we'll jump in and use it. So we're going to take a quick look at comments here. Comments are omitted parts of your code that serve as notes to anyone that's using the code or what it does. Like especially if you write a big project and come back a year later, unless you're like the next Einstein or just really good at remembering, you're not going to remember what the code does, you know, so having comments are good. There's 3 types: line, block, and documentation. So we're going to go over them. Line comments are the 2 slashes that you can see there. They omit all writing after the dashes on the current line only. So the next line is back into code, but it's, you know, only those 2 slashes, anything after that. So you can actually have a section of code, then put the 2 slashes after it, and it won't affect your code. Now, a block comment will omit everything from that starting slash and asterisk to the ending asterisk and slash. And that means they can be on multiple lines because everything, it can be on one line, but it will omit everything from that start to the stop. And documentation comment is similar, except it starts with 2 asterisks, and each line you indent, it puts an asterisk, and you can write on that, and that's mainly meant for documentation. And we have a special section on documentation, which it'll be a while, but we'll get there, and we'll talk about the documentation comment more then. But right now, you just need to know it exists. Okay, so let's follow along. Just follow along here, and we're gonna write your first program real quick, and then we have a couple more things to talk about. All right, so we're in BlueJ right now. You can see right here it says package teaching. Do not worry about that. That's only on mine. I've put all these files in a package so you don't see the rest of my files, just because there's way too many. And then usually BlueJ, when opening a file, will give like, you know, starting code. I always just delete all of that, and from now on you'll see everything here in BlueJ. Things are going to work a little differently in Dr. Java. I would ask for help with Dr. Java. But anyway, so let's just start writing. So anytime you want to run a main method, you can't just start with this main method here, because you're gonna get an error. All code in Java needs to be enclosed in a class. So anytime you're gonna start writing code, we're gonna write public class. And as you can see, we now get this green border, meaning that BlueJ has recognized that you're gonna start writing a class. And I've called this class Hello World here. So whatever you've saved the file as, your public class needs to have the same exact name. And as you can see with camel case notation, the class name is always capitalized, and every subsequent word is also capitalized. All right, and It's always good to indent your code. BlueJ automatically does it for you, so that's nice. And you can start writing your main method. Now, the main method is public static void main string square brackets args, which is a string array, and then you can close it. And this is what I was talking about with BlueJ constantly compiles. So you can see it's throwing an error here. Usually, if you run Dr. Java, you would have to press compile before it checks for any errors. You still have to compile before running, but we'll talk about that in a second. So we're just going to do this most simple thing. I'm going to teach you output, which is very, very simple. There's two ones. There's system.out.print, and then whatever you want to print will go in those parentheses, which is throwing an error because I don't have anything. And then there's also system.out.println. Now, what do these do? System.out.print will print on one line, right? And then if you were to have another print statement, it would be right at the end here where my red cursor, my red line is there. It'll print it directly after. What println does is after it prints, it would move the cursor to the next line. So basically, like, printing doesn't move the cursor. So if your cursor starts here, when it prints, it'll end here, right? And then, so if you were to have another print statement, it would look like it's appended right to the end of hello. Like if I was going to say, if this was another print, and I would say world, then, you know, the output would be like this, where they're connected. But if this is a println, what this does is after you print this hello, it moves the cursor to the next line, and you'll get this output. And I'll run that in a second here. But as you can see, I'm using comments. So this is your line comment. So if I say, oh, hello there, and then move to the next line, I start typing, it's not commented. And then this is your block comment here. And it makes asterisk lines too. But you know, this is blocked, and this is blocked too. But as soon as after I'm done with this ending brace, it's back to code. And then this is the documentation one. You can see it's a different color because BlueJ has this documentation here. So anything that would be put in that documentation would end up going into the documentation. So let's run this. So I'm just going to delete all of this. And let's run your first program by saying system.out.println, and then in double quotations, put hello world. And then end with a semicolon, because you always need to end Java lines of code with a semicolon. So this is how you're going to run in BlueJ. You're going to hit compile, and then you see this. This is your program class right here. You're going to just right click it, and then you see this is void main string args. You're going to click that and hit OK. This window will pop up, and there we go. It prints hello world. In BlueJ, there will be a compile and run button here, so you can just compile and one of these will be run. In BlueJ, I'm going to show you something real quick. If you go to key bindings and options, and you go to miscellaneous right here, or is it? It's somewhere here. I think it was maybe in edit. Where did it go? Yeah, oh yeah, here it is. You can automatically set key bindings to compile, so you don't need to click the button, or you can even, like, well, it's not going to let me because I'm in this menu, but you can compile it in this menu too. You cannot run automatically in BlueJ. You have to, as in you can't run from the terminal, you have to compile it either here or compile it here, and then you have to run it here. It's the only way to do it. I don't know why they don't have a run button here. Sometimes it's annoying, but it's just the way it is. Alright, so you've successfully written your first program. I think there's only a couple more things to talk about here. Really only one. But the Coding Network has a Discord The join link is right here. We'll put it in the description. But you can join it and ask for help. And it's a small Discord because it's only like a couple people I know, and that's about it. But growing it would be pretty nice. So yeah, and that moves us on to primitive types, and we'll be doing that in the next video. So good luck with your Java endeavors. See ya.